He was face down on the sidewalk, handcuffed, knees in his back, while his 7-year-old daughter screamed for them to stop. The white officer shoved the little girl back with his elbow, not knowing every second of this was being live-streamed to her school iPad. 10 minutes later, the man's briefcase lay open on the squad car, and out slid the federal badge. Not a fake one. Real. Embossed. And with it, a sealed letter from the Department of Justice. But it was already too late. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching us from. 7:38 a.m. The sun hadn't even warmed the concrete yet. But for Officer Kent Raleigh, it was already a bad-feeling kind of morning. "We got movement," he mumbled into his radio, eyeing the black man in the gray suit walking down East Ainsley Avenue with a little girl by his side. They weren't running. They weren't hiding. They were just walking. But something about it felt wrong to Raleigh. Too confident. Too calm. "Just had a car stolen 2 blocks north," he said, knowing full well it was a silver SUV and the man was on foot. He didn't wait for confirmation. "Hey, sir, stop right there," he called out, one hand on his belt. The man, tall and quiet, slowed but didn't freeze. "Is there a problem, officer?" he asked, voice firm, protecting the girl behind his leg. "Got a call about a stolen vehicle in the area. You match the description." "What description?" the man asked. Raleigh didn't answer. Instead, he pulled his radio again. "Dispatch, suspect is not complying. I'm detaining for questioning." "What's going on?" the girl asked, her small hand squeezing tighter into her father's palm. He looked down at her, calm as ever. "Stay behind me, baby." Raleigh took that as resistance. Without warning, he reached for his cuffs. "Turn around. Hands behind your back." "I haven't done anything wrong," the man said. "And I'm walking my daughter to school." "Hands. Now." The girl stepped forward. "He didn't steal anything. We were just—" Raleigh shoved her back with his elbow. She fell, scraping her hand on the curb. Her tablet slid out of her backpack and clattered to the ground. Camera still on, still recording. By the time backup arrived, the man was already in cuffs. Face down, shirt torn. "What's his name?" asked Officer Heller, glancing at the briefcase now lying beside the squad car. "Didn't check yet," Raleigh muttered. "No ID on him." Heller popped the latch. And then everything stopped. Inside was a leather wallet, 2 IDs, and a sealed federal folder. "You might want to look at this," Heller said slowly, lifting the badge. Raleigh's face turned pale. His grip loosened. But the damage was done. The girl was still crying, clutching her tablet, live stream still rolling. And the man, bruised but silent, hadn't said a word since they shoved his face into the sidewalk. The door of the precinct slammed open. "We got a 10-91 in progress," Officer Raleigh barked as he dragged the cuffed man through the lobby. "No ID, no compliance, possible connection to vehicle theft. Name unknown." The man didn't speak. His lip was cracked, tie torn, wrist bleeding from the cuffs. The girl followed close behind, clutching her backpack, face blotchy and wet. "Where's your mama, sweetheart?" asked the desk sergeant gently. She pointed at the man. "That's my daddy." Officer Heller lowered his voice. "Raleigh, we should check that badge again. It says DOJ, and it's got a level 5 clearance code." Raleigh brushed him off. "Could be fake. They print those things online these days. You saw the seal, and that encrypted envelope." "Don't get soft now," Raleigh muttered, hauling the man into booking. He sat the suspect down hard on the bench. "Name," he snapped. The man raised his head slowly. "You had no probable cause. No suspicion. No warrant. And no decency." His voice was calm, but the weight behind it made Heller flinch. Raleigh scoffed. "That's not a name." He turned to the girl. "What's your daddy's name, kid?" She hesitated, then spoke in a whisper. "Deshaun Avery." A pause. The room stiffened. Even the computer clerk blinked twice. "Wait," muttered Heller. "You said Avery?" The man lifted his wrist. "The badge you didn't bother scanning is in your cruiser, along with a federal clearance card bearing the name Deshaun Quincy Avery." The booking clerk's hands trembled as she typed. Within seconds, the screen flashed green. "Federal employee. DOJ internal oversight." Raleigh's face turned gray. This can't be real. "You assaulted a federal officer in front of a minor," Avery said coldly. "And you're still wearing your weapon." 2 more officers stepped in from the hallway, tension rising. The girl clutched her dad's arm tighter. "Daddy, can we go home now?" He didn't answer. "Not yet. Take her to a quiet room," Avery said, nodding toward Heller. "Let her sit. Give her some water." Yes, sir, Heller replied, instinct overriding confusion. What are you? Raleigh asked, voice cracking. FBI? Avery's expression didn't change. Higher. The silence was like a weight. Even the radios went quiet. He stood, slow and deliberate. You're going to uncuff me. You're going to call your supervisor. And then you're going to pray this stays in this room. Raleigh hesitated, but he was already out of time, because the door behind them opened, and in walked Special Agent Taryn Nichols, badge already out, voice sharp as a blade. Step away from Mr. Avery. Now. Officer Raleigh's hand froze midair. The sound of Agent Nichols' heels echoing across the precinct floor was louder than her voice. Did I stutter? She repeated. Step away. Raleigh let go of the cuffs as if they burned him. Nichols walked directly to Deshaun Avery, as never leaving Raleigh. Sir, are you injured? She asked. Just humiliated in front of my daughter and thrown into a wall by a man with a badge, Avery replied calmly. Nichols turned. Get a medic. Now. The clerk scrambled to pick up the phone. Officer Heller quietly backed toward the door. Raleigh didn't move. You can't just walk in here and start giving orders, he snapped. This is my precinct. Nichols pulled a thin black folder from her coat and laid it gently on the desk. Read it. Raleigh didn't move. I said, read it. He opened the folder. His face fell. Inside was an official DOJ document, signed, time-stamped, and sealed, declaring Deshaun Avery an internal oversight liaison with Level 7 authorization. This is fake, Raleigh muttered, voice cracking. They can't send you without. That seal is biometric, Nichols interrupted. And that live stream you ignored? It already uploaded to our cloud the moment your boot touched his neck. The room fell still. Deshaun said nothing. He just rubbed Maya's shoulder gently as she sipped water on the far bench. Nichols turned to the station supervisor, who had just arrived from the hallway. I need your holding room surveillance pulled. Also the cruiser dash cam. And the arrest report Officer Raleigh hasn't written yet. Understood, the supervisor said, though his voice shook. And separate that child from any male officer immediately, Nichols added. I don't want her questioned. I want her comforted. Maya flinched at the word questioned. Deshaun's voice broke through like thunder. She was shoved to the ground. For speaking. She didn't touch anyone. Didn't raise her voice. Nichols gave a curt nod. That will be included in the report. Raleigh snapped. You're making me out like some monster. He was suspicious. That's it. We had a stolen vehicle. 2 blocks away. With a different suspect. In a different direction. And no match to his clothing, height, or the fact that he was walking with a child. Nichols' voice was ice. You profiled him. You escalated. You laid hands. And you threatened a minor. Raleigh's face twisted with rage. He looked too calm. Everyone turned. Even the desk clerk looked up from her keyboard. He didn't look nervous, okay. That's why I stopped him. That's why I. He stopped talking. Because Maya was staring at him. Silently. As if memorizing his face. Nichols lowered her voice. Officer Raleigh, you're being placed on administrative hold pending review. Your weapon, badge, and car keys. Now. Raleigh didn't argue. This time. He just removed the items and placed them on the counter. Slowly. One by one. Nichols looked at Deshaun. Sir, do you want to press criminal charges? Deshaun didn't answer. Not yet. The interview room was cold. Metal table. 2 chairs bolted to the floor. 1 buzzing light above. Deshaun sat motionless. Maya waited outside with a social worker, legs dangling from a plastic chair, clutching a small juice box. Across from him now, Captain Ron Mercer. Gray mustache, pressed uniform, tired eyes. And Agent Nichols, arms folded, face unreadable. Mr. Avery, Mercer began, voice smooth. I think we can all agree this was a terrible misunderstanding. Deshaun didn't blink. You think this was misunderstanding? Mercer leaned forward. Our officer made a judgment call. Mistaken, yes. But in the field, quick decisions have to be made. I'm sure you understand that. Nichols didn't speak. She just watched Mercer. Your officer shoved a 7-year-old child, Captain, Deshaun said coldly. She has a cut on her hand and nightmares waiting to happen. And we're deeply sorry, Mercer added quickly. Which is why we're offering full cooperation. He slid a folder across the table. Inside, a non-disclosure agreement. Blank check. Immunity clause. It's standard, Mercer said. Nichols stiffened. This isn't protocol. Mercer turned to her. It is when it protects the department. This isn't about the department. This is about him. You think this city wants headlines about officers arresting federal agents? You think the mayor wants footage of a child being manhandled on every screen by noon? Deshawn opened the folder. He stared at the pages, then closed it quietly. You don't want accountability. You want it to disappear. No one's saying that, Mercer said. We're saying let's be adults about this. Nichols turned sharply. He is being an adult. He's sitting here with restraint I wouldn't have after being slammed into a sidewalk and handcuffed in front of my child. Mercer kept his voice level. He's not supposed to be here. Not in this station. Not on that street. No record. No assignment. No field authorization. That's what people are asking. Deshawn leaned in. You mean people are asking why a black man was walking his daughter to school with a briefcase and no fear in his eyes? Silence. If I'd been nervous, scared, or loud, you'd call it resisting. If I stay calm, you call it too composed. Nichols inhaled sharply. Mercer tried again. We just want resolution. Deshawn stood. Resolution's not a paper I sign. He turned to Nichols. Where's my daughter? Right outside. Then we're done here. Sir, Mercer said, rising, I strongly advise. Deshawn stopped in the doorway. You're right about one thing, Captain. Mercer raised an eyebrow. I wasn't supposed to be there. He looked back over his shoulder. I was supposed to be somewhere worse. Watching a different precinct. Evaluating someone else. He let the words hang. But your guy made sure this station became the story. And he walked out. Deshawn didn't speak on the ride home. Maya sat beside him in the back seat of the unmarked car, clutching her juice box like a shield. Agent Nichols drove in silence, her eyes flicking between lanes. She okay? Nichols asked softly. Physically, Deshawn replied. He looked out the window. The rest we'll see. At the next red light, Nichols pulled a flash drive from her coat and held it out. Body cam, cruiser cam, lobby cam. Backup copies. Made them before the IT guy got the order to delete. Deshawn took it, but didn't thank her. You're risking your job. So are you, she answered. Deshawn glanced at Maya. I already did. Back at his apartment, Deshawn tucked Maya into bed early. She didn't ask questions, just curled up and whispered, I know you're not mad at me. He sat beside her, stroking her hair. I'm mad that I couldn't stop it faster. She nodded, half asleep. It's okay. You didn't cry. He smiled faintly. Neither did you. She drifted off. In the living room, Deshawn connected the flash drive to his encrypted tablet. The footage loaded. Every second of it. Raleigh's aggression, Maya's scream, the hand that shoved her to the ground, the cuffs, the silence. His silence. Then came the logs. He paused. In the access file was an internal code, manually altered after the arrest. Someone had logged into the station's internal database and changed the event label from unauthorized detention to verbal warning, no arrest. He stared at the screen. Someone was scrubbing the system. He opened a second file, the cruiser audio. It cut off mid-sentence. Dispatch, suspect is not, static, in progress, refusing to. Cut. It wasn't a glitch. It was a patch. They were erasing it in real time. He stood and paced. What was supposed to be a local incident was now being buried by someone with access above precinct level. And Nichols, she hadn't mentioned the logs being edited. Only backed up. He looked at the drive again. Did she know? Or had she handed him this quietly, hoping he'd see? The burner phone on his table buzzed once. He answered. No greeting. Just a voice. You need to back off, Avery. You made your point. Don't make it worse. Deshawn didn't respond. The voice continued. We know where your daughter goes to school. Don't make this political. Don't embarrass the department. Let it fade. Click. Line dead. Deshawn stood frozen in his own apartment. They weren't just cleaning the file. They were warning him. He looked back toward Maya's door. The city wasn't just trying to cover a mistake. It was protecting a pattern. The next morning, Deshawn didn't put on a suit. He wore the uniform. Not a police uniform. Not a federal windbreaker. This one was darker. Sleek. No name tag. Just a lapel pin the size of a fingernail. 442L. A clearance code only a handful of people in the state recognized. But for those who did, it meant, this man designs the system you work in, not just audits it. He dropped Maya off at Ms. Jones' apartment. An old friend. No questions asked. Just a firm nod and a locked door behind her. Then he drove. Past the police station. Past City Hall. Straight to the Department of Municipal Oversight, the same office where civilian complaints go to disappear. No one stopped him. The security scanner beeped once, recognized his badge, and let him through. Conference room 3, Mr. Avery, the guard said, without lifting his eyes. Inside, 3 people were waiting. A quiet analyst with a laptop, a tall woman in a gray blazer, deputy chief of internal conduct, and a bald man with a U.S. attorney's badge clipped to his belt. "You stirred things up," the attorney said. "I said nothing," Deshawn replied calmly. The system screamed on its own. The woman opened a folder. "We've reviewed the cruiser footage. In the database edit, someone changed your detainment code to a verbal stop." Deshawn nodded. "Then you know they also tampered with audio." He slid a printed waveform across the table, a time-stamped segment where radio contact was clearly cut mid-sentence. The analyst leaned in, frowning. "And this?" Deshawn opened his phone and played a short audio clip. A scrambled voice. "We know where your daughter goes to school. Don't make this political. Let it fade." The room fell silent. The attorney sat forward. "That's not just internal bias. That's criminal obstruction and witness intimidation." "That's not all," Deshawn said. "I traced the signal path." He placed another document on the table, an IP trace leading to a government server node. "You access telecom routing data?" the woman asked, alarmed. Deshawn met her eyes. "I helped build it." Another silence. They weren't dealing with a compliance officer. They were dealing with a systems architect. The man who wrote the rules, not the man who followed them. "You can't go public," the attorney said. "Not with this much exposure." "I won't," Deshawn replied. "But if anything happens to me or my daughter, everything goes live. Footage, names, logs, internal IDs. It's already queued." The analyst swallowed hard. The woman finally asked, "What do you want?" Deshawn pulled one last page from his folder. "I want every case tied to Officer Kent Raleigh reopened. Every complaint. Starting with this one." She looked down. 2018. Suspect, Malik Jensen, age 14. Hospitalized. No charges filed. Deshawn stood. "That boy never got justice. I intend to find him." And he walked out. Without waiting for permission, Deshawn sat at his kitchen table, fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. Maya was at school. Ms. Joan had strict instructions: no field trips, no strangers, no surprises. On his screen, archive complaints, each tied to one name, Officer Kent Raleigh. But one case wouldn't leave his mind. Malik Jensen, age 14, hospitalized. Concussion, fractured wrist. No charges filed. Case closed due to insufficient evidence. He found the original report. 4 lines long. No body cam. No witness. Just one sentence from Raleigh. Suspect tripped while fleeing. But Deshawn knew how to follow threads. He tracked the intake hospital. Found the nurse who wrote the intake notes. She still worked there. 3 hours later, he was sitting in a break room, across from her. Her name was Kayla Mendez. 42. Worn hands. Sharp eyes. "You remember him?" Deshawn asked. She nodded without hesitation. He didn't trip. His eye was swollen shut. He had boot prints on his back. Deshawn's jaw tightened. "Did you report it?" "Twice. Internal Affairs never called back. Then a supervisor told me to stop writing personal opinions and charts." She handed him a copy she kept for herself. Quietly. Silently. Like passing a secret between prisoners. "Do you know where Malik is now?" he asked. Kayla hesitated. "Last I heard, group home. Then foster care." He bounced around. Kid was scared of uniforms. Any kind. That was all Deshawn needed. He pulled from his jacket a sealed envelope. Inside, his DOJ credentials. Kayla blinked. "Wait, you're not." "I'm exactly what you think," he interrupted. "And I'm going to find him." That night, he accessed the foster system. He didn't need a court order. His badge let him bypass the firewalls. Malik Jensen. Current status: transferred to state supervision. 2021. Location: redacted. Redacted? He ran a background process. 4 pings came back. 2 in-state. 1 in a juvenile detention program. 1 in a suspended school program. And the 4th? A shelter address. Under a fake name. He drove through the night. At 6:12 a.m., he stood outside a crumbling brick shelter, buzzed the call box, and said 2 words. DOJ inquiry. They let him in. Malik was 17 now. Taller. Hardened. A scar above his brow. But the eyes were still that of a boy who'd been shoved into pavement and forgotten. Deshawn approached slowly. "You don't know me, but I know what happened to you. I read it all." Malik flinched. "Doesn't matter. They made it disappear." Deshawn pulled a flash drive from his pocket. "Not anymore." Malik stared. "What is that?" "Evidence. Witness statements. Medical files." records they thought were erased. He paused. I don't want to speak for you. I want you to speak for yourself. Malik's voice was quiet. No one ever asked me to. Deshawn sat beside him. I am now. The hearing room at the Department of Justice was smaller than expected. No press. No cameras. Just 3 chairs, a recorder, and 1 microphone. Malik sat beside Deshawn, wearing a borrowed shirt and nerves too large for his shoulders. Across from them, a woman from DOJ Ethics, a compliance auditor, and a federal note-taker. Deshawn slid a folder across the table. This is a sworn statement, he said. Signed and notarized. Inside, Malik's testimony. The original nurse report. Timestamped photos. And 4 other names. 4? The auditor asked. Yes, Deshawn said. I ran Raleigh's patrol history. Same pattern. Young black males. Minor stops. No charges. But hospital records exist. He paused. We just never connected them. Until now. Malik looked down at his hands. The compliance officer leaned in. Are you asking us to open a criminal case? Deshawn didn't blink. I'm demanding it. The note-taker wrote silently. After the hearing, Malik waited by the elevator. I still don't get why you care, he said. You don't even know me. Deshawn looked at him carefully. I used to think my job was auditing systems, fixing files, correcting mistakes. He stepped into the elevator, holding the door open. But now I know better. Malik stepped in beside him. What is it now? The system isn't broken, Deshawn said quietly. It's working exactly the way they built it. Back at his apartment, Deshawn opened a new file. Case status, Raleigh, Kent, administrative leave. But under internal action, 1 line was added. Recommended return to duty. Pending review. His blood chilled. He opened the metadata. The update was logged 1 hour after the hearing. By someone with clearance level 5. He wasn't just fighting local corruption now. He was in a war with federal rot. He stood, packed the flash drives, printed backup reports, encrypted Maya's school access profile, then wrote a single message, a digital dead man switch, sent to 3 internal legal servers. Subject, DOJ Code 442, L compromise. If anything happened to him, the entire network would light up with every file, every name, every timestamp. They would silence him once, but never twice. He closed the laptop and turned off the lights. A knock hit the door. He froze. Then another. 3 sharp knocks. Then silence. He moved to the door. Who is it? He asked. No answer. Then a voice. Sir, we need you to come with us. Maya stirred in the other room. Deshawn's eyes narrowed. The voice was too smooth, too rehearsed. He checked the peephole. Unmarked suits. No badges. And one of them? He recognized him. From the 2019 DOJ Annual Review Board. An internal fixer. Not law enforcement. Clean up. Deshawn stepped back from the door and reached for the small metal case hidden beneath the floorboard. Time was up. The case under the floorboard was matte black. No logo. No keyhole, just a fingerprint pad. Deshawn pressed his thumb to it. The latch clicked. Inside, a secured laptop, 1 encrypted phone, and a slim flash drive with a red stripe, his insurance copy. The men outside knocked again. Sir, you're under internal review. Failure to comply will be documented. He didn't answer. Instead, he powered up the laptop. A single prompt flashed. Activate release? He hovered over yes, then paused. Maya. She was still asleep. If they forced entry, she'd be the first thing they saw. He moved quickly, slipping into her room. She stirred as he lifted her gently. Are we leaving? She asked. Just taking a walk, baby. You always say that when something bad's coming. He didn't respond. He moved through the back stairwell, down to the parking garage, and into a borrowed sedan with no plates. Just before pulling out, he activated the second device in the black case, a signal bouncer. Anyone tracking him from the building would see a looped GPS path driving in circles downtown. He drove 10 blocks, then parked, and waited. An hour passed. Then the call came. Unknown number. Scrambled line. He answered. You've made things difficult, the voice said. Deshawn said nothing. You were supposed to be internal. Quiet. Clean. We brought you in because you understood how the machine runs. A pause. But you forgot your role. Deshawn's voice was calm. I didn't forget. I evolved. The line was quiet. Then, you're a problem now. Click. He turned to Maya, who was drawing shapes on the fogged-up window. He whispered. Almost done. That night, He entered an old facility, decommissioned and used, but he still had clearance. There, he inserted the red stripe drive into a secure server. One file copied. DOJ Case Leak Packet 001. Not for the media, not for the public. For a federal judge whose grandson had once been falsely accused. A man Deshawn trusted. Deshawn left a message. You asked me once if I'd ever seen it up close. Now you will. The moment the file transferred, an alert hit 3 agencies. They knew where he was. He shut down the server, wiped the logs, and left. By the time the agents arrived, he and Maya were already gone. The next morning, every high-level inbox and DOJ oversight received the same auto-scheduled message. If anything happens to Deshawn Quincy Avery or Maya Avery, this archive becomes public. That includes suppressed complaints, officer files, and classified case closures. Deshawn had vanished, but the threat remained. And the system knew, if it reached one more hand, one more leak, there'd be no turning back. The next move had to be theirs. 10 days passed. No sightings. No official statements. No press releases. Deshawn Avery had disappeared. But inside the walls of federal offices, his name was whispered like a curse. The archive he'd threatened to release? Still untouched? Still encrypted? But the fear of it hovered like smoke. Behind closed doors, the DOJ faced a choice: investigate itself or erase him completely. And they tried. First, they froze his accounts. Then they flagged Maya's school enrollment. Then came a closed-door motion to revoke his federal clearance retroactively. But nothing worked. Because Deshawn hadn't hidden in fear. He'd hidden in strategy. From a remote location, off-grid, satellite-guarded, he made contact. Through a third-party encrypted legal liaison. One simple message. One condition. A week later, a sealed package arrived at the desk of a federal judge. Inside, a full statement from Malik Jensen. The medical files of 4 other boys. The internal logs showing altered case codes. A cover letter signed, Deshawn Quincy Avery, DOJ 442, L, authorization still active. The letter ended with a demand. Reinstate oversight on precinct-level misconduct reviews. Reinforce internal data redundancy protocols. But above all, ensure Officer Kent Raleigh never wears a badge again. You don't owe it to me. You owe it to every file I didn't open yet. No response came. But 1 week later, the DOJ issued an internal order. Raleigh, terminated. Permanently barred from law enforcement positions. 3 months after that, Malik received a scholarship letter. 6 months later, Maya was re-enrolled in a new school, this time, under a different name. No questions asked. And 1 year later, in a quiet house by the ocean, Deshawn sat on the porch as Maya built a sandcastle. Daddy, are we safe now? He didn't answer right away. He looked at the waves. The wind. The silence. Then nodded. For now. She smiled. Can I go deeper? He stood and walked with her. Always within arm's reach. Always watching. The system hadn't changed. But she would grow up without chains around her ankles. Without fear in her throat every time a siren passed. And for him, that was enough. He didn't want applause. He didn't want revenge. He wanted peace. And finally, he had it.